for another episode of Simply Stated Live. I'm at one of the parks in North Michigan, and I'm not going to say exactly which one because I really don't want anyone else to be. Well, let's just say it was bad enough trying to get over here today. Like I went to one park, there were people following me. It's always a weird day when I'm reminded that Angelina Jolie is also Amanda Seyfried. There's nothing but this really weird, vicious black op that totally wants to kill anyone that is in support of Russia. It's just really strange. She's an Iranian, right? But she was right here. She was following me. I pulled off. So that's her actual job. Like, she's really not an actress. And then I pulled off, and it was really funny because I mean, it's not funny. It's like funny to me, but somebody else would probably be freaked out. I saw like MI6 was like right behind, like trailing after her after I pulled off. I was like, oh. Weird. It's gotten really weird today. Anyway, so I don't understand what everyone's doing, but there's an awful lot of activity up here on the coast. And no, nobody's gonna protect Angelina Jolie from getting herself killed with everything she's been up to the past year. So let's get into this episode of Simply Stated. To be episode 28. This is for season 5, Simply Stated Odds and Ends. I think the biggest thing right now is that we're talking about gas prices have gone down slightly, but I figured out with my experiences over the past few days that True North and Speedway. So Speedway is owned by Chris Evans, who I was in the fraud marriage to, right? Like I was labor trafficked and I ended up filing for dissolution fraud for the marriage. Got away from him, started filing for cruelty because we didn't have an actual marriage. I never found out his name in Russia, but went through a long investigation down in DC. For a lot of you knew him as the name David Barnes, but he's also the CEO of Speedway and owns it, and he also apparently owns the 2 North gas stations. So what I noticed is that they're engaging in predatory practices with the pumps on cards. I mistakenly went to a True North, and they put a hold, like, they've been overcharging, charging people like $50, $100 to even, like, open a pump and start filling your car after you put your card in. So if you put in a debit or credit card, they're automatically gonna, snag $50 to $100 off of you and then hold it. I had a really strange exchange because I ended up going to the store and canceling. Like I said, I didn't put 50, I was only gonna put 30 in the car. I'm poor. And the guy who was running the gas station said, well, just shut the pump off. So I only took like $25 for gas and it charged me for 50. And then I had to go through a long process of going back and forth and finally got the charge of the car reversed. So for a lot of you, I mean, it was actually another person that works in journalism who told me recently that the research is showing that pretty much all of you are going to want to start paying for gas with cash and not using cards. I don't understand why conflict in the Middle East or some other part of the world would make this sudden case for putting $50 to $100 on a card just to open up a pump and start pumping gas into your car. That doesn't actually make any sense. And the gas station said, well, I think it's your bank. I said, no, my bank doesn't do this at every single gas station. Hi, Jessica. So it's really important to remember that your times are hard, people are shady, and you're going to want to you're probably going to want to use cash to fill up your car, or even just put like $10 of gas in your car at a time. I think the whole thing frankly sucks, but that's probably how it's going to have to go for a lot of us. I'm certainly starting to do it myself. So, anyways, I need to remind you all that Congressman Adam Kinzinger, I always forget about him. That's the one that it turned out to also be M. Gardner, and then was Melanie Case that lived next to me as a little kid back in Dubuque, Iowa on Hidden Valley Road back in the 80s. That's a really weird story. We just need to review that because that's the one that also posted Tim Hathaway. The Hathaway Group went to Georgetown, is Russian, works for the Russian government, has been a congressman for Illinois for a long time, and is clearly passing information back and forth with them, or even targeting U.S. citizens here in the U.S., openly stated on The Daily Show that it was cool with a civil war starting in the U.S. And I think you better believe it. And you've got a sitting member of Congress that, I mean, this is the guy that said I was supposed to be raped and beat on and, have all these, it's actually a woman, and have all these videos made and do all this work for people that were Russian ancestry. Thank you. Thanks on the compliment in the hat. Labor trafficked for all those years and never paid. And of course, the work all went mostly to Endeavor Corp and then people who were either Russian, Chinese, or Albanian over at CA. Obviously, I have no contracts or agreements with any of the major Hollywood agencies, but it's important to know about all of that, because the whole situation was like way beyond the stupid games of people saying, "Oh, that's not happening," or "We didn't do this." It's like, no, it definitely happened, and you definitely did do that, and that's why the rest of us are discussing with you, and why most people in the U.S. really don't like Hollywood or want to have anything to do with it. So, I don't really think you can go back, because even if I were suddenly paid for all the work, you wouldn't be able to reverse all the damage onto my life or other people's by these, what are basically the old KGBs. So, it's weird times up here in the sense that, I've seen him over the past few months. The winter time, he was down in West Branch. I'm not sure, he showed up at the office where I went to get my Social Security card replaced. I did get it, but I wouldn't really credit Representative Kinzinger for actually doing that for me, because, he wanted to go through the setups, and he was the one that sent me off that day back in 2005, and I ended up with a hand injury in a car accident that Katie Couric had set up, because she's rushed off of speed and wanted me to be injured in a car accident, which led to my hand not working properly for like 10 years and me being trafficked. Remember, I was thrown on a flight of stairs, multiple back injuries, and told to work for free on all these projects, plus had my hand partially broken and had to go through hand surgery. It didn't even turn out that well at one point. Finally got to a good hand surgeon who said, frankly, there's no surgery that's really going to restore it. The best thing you can do is keep doing some exercises. Here's a steroid injection that's going to hurt. I can give you another one, but, really nice guy. Turned out to actually be from the Muslim community. Good doctor. I took his advice and ran with that as far as what happened to my hand. But, this is a congressman that's sitting in Congress today that's openly in favor of civil war in the U.S. And what he's really aiming for is this war with Albanian and Russian operatives on behalf of Russia, and people maybe from representatives from China as well. We'll see what happens with that. Having an overt civil war here in the U.S., and they've openly been talking about wanting it for a long time, and you're starting to see it play out. So, I've been trying to warn people up here, like, if you're expecting to be a great tourist season and make a lot of money with gas prices, that's the nicest way to put it euphemistically, it's probably not going to work out. It's not a good time for tourism, and we'll get into why. Because the Russian government has openly started attacking people here at tourist sites in northern Michigan. I don't understand how this plays into what's been going on with the current Governor Whitmer. I do realize some of the shows of the winter may have been sort of confusing. But, I'm still trying to determine. Governor Whitmer looks an awful lot like Elizabeth Ellis, who turns to be Russian, and had an affair with your current Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, at one point. I don't know. It's not up to me to know. But I'm just telling you. I'm telling you what's going on. Apparently, it's just been one bizarre conversation after the other. And so sometimes the shows line up and everything is like, it's all lined up perfectly logically. And sometimes I'm putting together what's like key phrasing for people that are not terrorists to understand what the real problem could be. Because apparently if Elizabeth Ellis isn't the governor, she's been impersonating Governor Whitmer and is Russian. So that's something to be aware of, because Elizabeth's actually shorter than me as far as I know, and Governor Whitmer's supposed to be a bit taller. Like, I'm 5'8", and we're supposed to be like, what, 5'10"? Anyway, so, it's just a piece of information, because there's a definite problem with Russian activity up here, especially this far north, and Russian ships being in Lake Michigan just hanging out. So, subs. Let's just open this up and get some sunshine going in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. This is a really weird statement I'm going to make, and I'm going to let the rest of you interpret this. It was Adam Kinzinger who came up with the idea of me not getting paid for all my work on OnlyFans or even other sites. And so the cops should be able to look at it for free, which I think is probably really offensive to the decent cop community. As far as I've been informed, the good cops of the U.S. are not interested in looking at my pictures free and not paying me for them. I suggest going and subscribing to my OnlyFans page at Deborah DEBORHKY. I do have people who hop on all the time who will buy like a JOI or two, which is really nice, and that's kind of about it. But, I'm just going to put that together for you so that let's not pretend that Adam Kinzinger isn't basically somebody who belongs in a psych ward at this point. And let's not pretend that openly, he wants a civil... Oh, maybe not. Ooh, we have Lucy Barnes activity around here through flies. Hold on, let's close this. So that's going to be an issue, too. Hi. So, yeah, somebody just walked by and was like, would you please say Adam Kinzinger needs to be put in a psych ward? Yeah. That's the one that was insulting U.S. cops back in the 2000s and saying they should be able to look at the pictures for free and trying to get me to agree to not be paid for all my OnlyFans work. And I just am openly admitting that too because it's important to understand that that's actually going on. Like, that's an actual issue. I mean, especially for me personally, like, it's something I've gone through. Have someone actually say that? No, I have never agreed that DHS or anybody else should just be able to go on my phone or at the agency or whatever and like look at free pictures of me that I made for OnlyFans or another site. I actually need to be paid for whatever work I do. So that's simply just one way to put it. Beyond all of that, I'm going to keep playing around with this while I talk to you. I think it's kind of important to recognize that, you know, it's easy to do like euphemisms and labeling and say, oh, you know, the congressmen are just crazy, the politicians are just crazy, politicians have always been corrupt, blah, blah, blah. That's not really true. And when you label and try to throw a topic away, you only hurt yourself. Because that's what I saw for like 20 years of investigations as an adult. I lived through this as a kid. I'm 46 now, legally in the U.S. Actually, I'm only 45, but I used the birthday that the U.S. government left me with after a tall mess. So I'll be 45 later this year. But, I mean, I'll be 46 later this year. Whatever. The point is, I'm only technically 45, and I'm going by the age 46 at this point. That's how messed up things are. You know, this is a person who went me through a car accident, made horrible comments about U.S. cops. You know, the reality is it's probably other random people just literally going into my phone, looking at pictures, and I'm not getting paid, or if anyone even is. But he actually said that about the U.S. cops, and frankly claimed that the CIA and NSA looked at all my pictures for free and didn't pay me, and the U.S. military had the right to. And I mean, it was just this bizarre pervert. This is the guy he used to talk about loosening women up. He's like, oh, you loosened her up, you loosened her up. Yeah. And it's actually a female. It's old KGB. So, it's still free in the U.S. And I went through a number of attacks over the winter with the Russian GSU and what's GRU, or we just call them Russian shit for brains, and there's their version of the CIA, which is like what also who's Alan Hamilton, like, you know, come on people. And how many of you were also hit attacks over the winter? Like, it's been a bad 7-8 months. A lot of you probably are like just hanging on for summer, like hoping you could somehow enjoy it, knowing it may not be as much fun as other summers have been here in the USA or wherever you are, if you're in Michigan or otherwise. I'm going to tell you why. I didn't want to have to make this show, but I've got other stuff I've got to do over the next week, and so we just got to get it done. Because I got to get this out for the Department of Justice and the Department of Labor, and then, you know, whatever allies we have left in the world. And anybody else who wants to know, and people live in Michigan. There was a pulse hit in northern Michigan at Charlevoix City up here in North Michigan on Monday. The attack was mostly attributed to Shelby Smith, who's married to Adam Driver, who apparently worked at CACI, Scott C's Livingston, and then also David Barnes, who happens to also be Timothy McVeigh. Remember that Shelby Smith is actually Billie Eilish, the singer. I was tempted to go off on Pastor Lee out of the Emmanuel Church down in Arlington, but then I remember that he doesn't actually know what to do about this, and he's also decided not to try it. Just simply need to go to war against all of them, which is how we've ended up with triad war erupting this year too. So it's important to note that I was actually hit at the park. I was filming. I was getting ready to film my yoga episodes for OnlyFans. I sometimes put up on YouTube for fun, for free. And I did still film my ad for YouTube that day. I was hit beforehand. And frankly, the current head of the FBI was there at the time, Kash Patel. Kash does not normally show up in, like, with entourage or people. He disguises himself a lot. But he was there and I guess was also hit. I don't understand. I'm like, why was I hit? This is really painful. It hit my arm really hard and my shoulder, and I was in a lot of pain. Like, I don't even have the energy to cry anymore, but it was extremely painful. And then I went and checked with other people afterwards in the area, and it was like all of the northwestern coast of Michigan and possibly all of northern Michigan was hit in this massive pulse attack. And I'm apparently supposed to throw all this at Jamie Rasmussen is the next thing. So here we're back to key phrasing. I'm concerned about. Apparently, Jamie got in trouble for trying to get me to agree to purchase a guy at the place I work, which I would obviously not do, so we were just going to continue to say that she's insane, and whatever angle she's playing, nobody's interested. By the way, I'm not going to go to the thrift store you set up here in Petoskey anymore because it's too dangerous. So that's over. So whatever deals you thought you were going to set up with that, it's just over. And a lot of the rest of us in Petoskey figured out that place is like way too shady and not safe. Um, I want to note for you that the Border Patrol, this is really weird. So, what is going on in Border Patrol? Because Scott Livingston is actually up here. He went by the name Scott Livingston. He was considered a junior rapist. Apparently, he's also Christopher Lublonsky and Christy Noem's husband. Of course, Christy Noem is actually Megan C's Livingston, and it's also Megyn Kelly, the journalist, who doesn't really have a journalism thing anymore. He used to be at Fox News and got fired. He famously, if he is Chris Lublonsky, famously lied and said that he was trying to get her out of Fox News. Apparently, he was up to protect her being at Fox News. The U.S. Department of Defense actually had to throw her out of Fox News broadcasting headquarters in New York, like 10 years ago. But I'm just saying all this because the two of them are actually both up here. And so this hit went through for their terrorist group out of Russia. So I got hit. It was in the Harbor Beach area, but so did a lot of other people. It was extremely painful. I guess I'm lucky I made it through it. But I have different survival skills. I literally, when I was in my car, I had a hat on. You know, I was in the middle, like, I have things set up differently than most people do. But then again, it's like, who doesn't anymore? You know, everyone's turned to a survivalist in order to get by these days and not die in weird pulse attacks. That's kind of the problem in the U.S. What I'm going to get to next, we're going to switch gears. I'm going to go through this really fast. We're going to put it all together. This time, the Russian SVRs of the SAV began turning people in. I need to know they also turned to the Northern Border Patrolman, Chief Michael W. Burke. I don't get it. He's supposed to be Southern. So, but he was fired on 5/15/2026. That doesn't make any sense because he's been up in Michigan. He was supposed to be down south. So I don't know what he was doing, but he got fired. Why isn't he in Texas? It's so weird. If anybody wants to answer that, great. If not, I'm just pointing it out. It's really strange that he wasn't at his post, but that's why he was fired, is he was up here playing around with terrorists that don't belong here. They're supposed to be arrested. It's like, if you're not going to be in Texas, did you follow them up here? Like, what are you doing? Because I think any of us would just appreciate if you would just simply pick these people up. I was at Meyer Day, and Scott was pretty clearly there, dressed up in his weird idiot costume, was following me around, and I just ended up checking out the place quickly, and he was identified by that system, but you know, it's a scary thing when somebody he's a junior rapist. There's a number of other women that I've identified in the shows who openly come forward and past and testified on him raping them. He's part of MS-13. He's a really big, nasty guy. You know, you kind of look at anybody weirdly who would employ him until you realize that they may not actually have employed him, and he may literally have just stuck himself on their staff roster and is literally just coming to the job and freaking people out until somebody gets their act together to throw him off the property and throw him out permanently. It's a very, very weird situation. So, you know, wouldn't start like trying to pass things off for anyone or cover it by saying, "Oh, we have gang members or stuff." It's like, no, that guy has a really nasty criminal history as an MS-13 member, and he doesn't belong up here, or anywhere free. He's supposed to be in prison, or I think even executed. The worst explanation I ever heard for him being free was that, and while you note this, he's actually a computer programmer, part of the Russian FSB, so he's a Russian cop, basically. But he's had jobs at CICI and Booz Allen Hamilton, and he's just really, really nasty and dangerous, and very aggressive about trafficking kids. So, you know, keep your kids tight with you these days, people, if you're in Northwest Michigan. There were children at the beach that got hit when I was there. There was two moms and two kids around at the time, and they could have been pretty seriously injured, or maybe even were, and just decided to deal with it. You know, you want to talk about a big old headache. That was his favorite saying, is that he was the guy who invented, like, massive headaches. Because he hits people really hard, and they end up having horrible headaches for days on. Not migraines. We used to euphemistically call these migraines, and everyone's pretty openly admitting it because we're getting hit by terrorist groups here in the U.S. I'm not going to label him and say he was a Muslim. I only know, what I know about him is that he was Russian FSB and also part of MS-13, and they said jobs at 2 U.S. security agencies that we've turned out to be working primarily for Russia and China, not to be real agencies. He also was the Ludacris model. He appeared in a Ludacris music video back in the early 2000s and was later removed from the footage, but he got paid for it. Patrick Witzel put him in and was his agent and literally featured him because he had Russian ancestry. Again, the worst excuse I've ever heard for this guy was that he was good looking and that he apparently had sex with women at the prisons. Bull fucking shit. Okay, I do not think he was having sex with prison guards who were female at the prisons or the men. I think he literally used his background and skills with the Russian military, simply just broke him out of these prisons, and that's why he's free. But he is extremely dangerous. He's over 6 foot, and I don't think gird your loins is really going to cover it on this one. So, There's something weird going on. I'm changing topics again. I bought generic Fagos instead of Coke because I'm poor. And I noticed every time I opened up a Fago can, I was getting hits put on me. I don't think it's Coca-Cola doing that. But I'm just wondering if that, like, is that an MS-13 thing? Is this, like, Donald Trump doing this to everybody? I don't understand. Yesterday somebody gave me a Pepsi and a hit went through the whole place. Someone's giving me a Coke. It stopped. I don't think this is coming from Coca-Cola. Only because I worked extensively on Coca-Cola's issues with them at one point and helped them get some other performers lined up and even have done some more for them myself. Simply because they had such a hard time when Ava Max, who happens to also be Fatina, literally put herself into one of their campaigns and they felt forced into it because of her control over the Russian military and her supporting from Albanian terrorists, right? Like, you look at what happened to the GM factories in Jan's, Wisconsin, you look at the banks, you look at some of the stuff, that's just some examples from the late 90s, and you start to understand why Coca-Cola or some of these other companies might feel really scared. What happened is they ran Ava Max for a while in a Coke commercial series and replaced it with another woman that I had done some work for and then phased her out quickly too because she was also just a stupid asshole. But, you know, the point is, like, I don't think Coke's doing this. This looks like it's coming from MS-13, hitting everyone. And unfortunately, that's people employed at CACI and Booz Allen Hamilton, which isn't really too cool. So you gotta know what you're, like, dealing with, what the real issue is. I have to say this, it was told to write it up. Who is Kash Patel really but some guy from India who gets beat up on by rude guys from Australia who are actually Russian? I'm just supposed to read that for you. That's the head of the FBI right now in the US. But seriously, Scott Livingston really needs to learn how to beat the hell off and get over it and beat the hell off. This is all because of Monday. Let's note that, changing topics again, Soren Dayton, formerly of the CIA, is not Alo Cushing, who was supposedly killed in Thailand years ago, almost a decade ago. By the way, Alo was killed in Thailand doing work for deceased Senator John McCain, and pretty clearly killed by Kerry Cushing, who turned out to be the now fired former Trump appointee and attorney in Eastern Virginia. So not his real wife. I mean, he was labor trafficked and murdered. Not Soren Dayton, who currently is now no longer at the CIA and has nonprofit work down the Washington, D.C. area. So just to clarify that for everybody. Also, Soren Dayton is very upset that Thomas Massie is out of his congressional race in Kentucky. Change of topic, but it still ties in. Ava Max, also known as Allison Hannigan, and also calls herself Fatina, the one that, you know, posed as my sister for all those years, abused me, and then she's also gone by the name Kendall. She's still working at the women's shelter in Traverse City, Michigan, which she was allowed by Brennan, formerly of the CIA, to record aha noises at it last year. It's important to know this because you've probably been hearing a weird aha noise especially most days in Petoskey and down in Traverse City, which, with attacks following it, the noise was actually played at the beach when I was there before the hit went through. Yes, Fatina, also known as Ava Max, who's a pop singer, but isn't really a pop singer, she doesn't really sing or everybody runs songs, did labor traffic me years ago and ended up setting everything up to phase out her career, but she's a really disgusting pervert and a pedophile, but she's pretty clearly working for the Albanian and Russian military, and it's turned out to be a Russian and military attack signal. It's going through the whole area. So whatever's going on, that Russia is literally allowed to run military signals through the area and start hitting people, it's time for it to stop. And that might be the reason for this episode. By the way, I definitely had my clown makeup on today. I decided to do way clown here because apparently is what's going on. It's like the Clown Fest this year. I just have to say this, Putin has simply gone nuts and started having everyone attacked, especially here in Michigan, but maybe all across the U.S. Enough is enough. That is all. I also need to note for Kim Kardashian, who happens to also be Sam Silver of Silver Lake, that Kourtney Kardashian impersonated Blaze, who now runs MI6, which was a big no-no at some point. And what is going to happen as a result of that, I don't know. But that one is definitely in trouble for even being around up here at all, if it's even still trying to be in the area. So this is the show for today. I decided it was just really important to get done because that's definitely, unfortunately, it looks like Fatina really was taking directions from Brennan, but how does that even make sense? Like, it's a Russian military signal coming through with an noise. It's like, and everyone's getting hit. Shut it down, people. Just shut it down. There's no reason for some weird idiot group out of Albania or Russia to be running signals through Michigan, hitting people. Just hitting the public or anyone. Not that special, not that important. I understand now why the governor of Michigan is under investigation to figure out whether it needs help or is, why are you allowing this? What kind of help do you need? I certainly wouldn't necessarily go to Donald Trump either for help because he's pretty nuts and he's known about a lot of this stuff and did put a stop to it. But I wouldn't simply turn down help either from anyone else who could put a stop to it. That's all I have to say about it. Shit needs to stop. But for the rest of you, you may find them like I was gonna go do the show at the Ottawa beach, and then I realized that transmissions don't go through as well up there, and I get like weird grainy signals. And if I film it like I'm not gonna film the show outside at one of the beaches, and God knows if I'll even be able to film yoga videos, outside the beaches. And I'll probably figure it out. Pretty good at that, but so far right now, it looks like Charlevoix, if you want to go to Bay Harbor, you might get hit in the head first. If you want to go down to Elk Rapids, I interviewed too many people that said Elk Rapids was too dangerous. And so what are your choices after that? You want to go to Traverse City? That beach went nuts last year with people getting hit all the time. These are some of the best beaches. And actually, the Traverse City beach, the hits didn't seem quite as bad, but at one point later in the summer, they got really bad, which is why I stopped going to it all. So I managed to get out of there before they got really bad. But, they're starting kind of early and hitting people at the beaches. And for any of us who, the reality of life in modern America is that you can be tracked by your cell phone signal. And so that can make it pretty tough to go to a beach and simply have a nice day in Michigan. Which is why I've often said in my shows, most Americans, most people in the U.S., even people traveling here, really just want to work their jobs, pay their bills, and they want to go to the beach and they want to have fun and they don't want to be harassed or harangued or deal with anything weird. And they certainly don't want to be hit by weird signals from Fatina, who also went by the name Kendall at one point in her life, going, and like hitting everyone in the head. Right? Because that audio has actually been playing, and there's nothing cool about it. What's it doing here? Doesn't belong to the USL, it doesn't belong free at the level that it's putting in those kinds of levels of attacks. And I know it because she was recording them last year at the women's shelter. And I reported all that, so I'm just sitting here like, what's the problem, people? What's your problem? So, it's really weird. I'm going to go ahead and show you the water for a minute. And this has been another edition of Simply Stated with me, Deborah K. I'll see you again here on YouTube at Deborah K. DEBORAH. DEBORAHKAYC. Bye.